All rise. Judge Gene Clemens is presiding. Thank you again for joining me. Shout out to the Athletic and everybody that's all made this possible. Shout out to you, the people who have entrusted me with your fantasy sports dilemmas. If you're looking for the answer to any of those skirmishes that you might be having in fantasy, I'm definitely your man. So make sure that you first like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Gene Clemens. And also make sure that you leave a comment about your dispute. Things that you have going on that's wrong, I've got you. Also, none of this would be possible without our sponsors. Thank you again to Say Less Sports Tees holding me down. If you have a team, an organization that's looking for good quality stuff, Say Less Sports Tees is definitely the way that you want to go. I also want to give a big love and big shout out to Cycle Bar Midtown Savannah. I'll be back soon, Savannah. And when I'm back, I'm right back on the bike because February is about being heart healthy, and Cycle Bar has a commitment to that. Cycle Bar Midtown Savannah over on Abercorn. If you're coming into town, if you live there now, cycle with me. I'm there almost every day, so you'll probably be riding next to me where I will most likely beat you. Only kidding. Let's get started with our first case. This is from Key B. It says, 12-team league, decently competitive. Is an 18 playoff field acceptable? Many of us have said it's too participation trophy-ish / soft. Is there any situation where an 18 playoff makes sense? Well, I would say this. An 18 playoff is going to make sense if that is what you are trying to accomplish, right? If you want it to be all-inclusive, if you want it to be fun, if you want it to be exciting, then yes, an 18 playoff is going to be great. But if you're playing for stakes, right? And I always talk about this. If you're playing for stakes, then the stakes have to mean something. So what do the stakes mean if in a 12-team league, over half of the people make the playoffs? That to me says the stakes aren't high enough. So what I would tell you is that if you're going to have 8 teams making the playoff in a 12-team league, then you have to either add more teams, or you probably shouldn't be playing for any stakes that matter. This should be a friendly league. This should be a hangout. This should be a throw little jabs at your friends league. This shouldn't be a big money league. This shouldn't be one of those leagues where you get a tattoo if you lose, or you have to do something crazy if you lose to pay off like being a loser. Like, this is a fun league. And if it's a fun league, hell, have all 12 teams make the playoffs. Who cares? But if this is a competitive league, if this is a league with stakes, no way you're having 8 in there. No way you're having 8. I'm not getting any league where I have to go through an entire season only to get to the playoffs and have to face everybody again. So, 12-team leagues, 8 teams in the playoffs, HE double hockey sticks, no. Next case. Now this one comes from Joshua. I think it's Joshua. Hold on. Yeah. Joshua B. It says, our league never updates its rules after the NFL extended its season. Now we have the first week of playoffs starting in week 14 when multiple teams have byes. The playoffs are also set to end in week 16. There's currently an argument about extending the regular season an extra week and pushing the playoffs back. Even with an extra week in the regular season, the playoff teams are locked. What do you think? So I look at this a couple different ways, right? The first is that your league, once they went to another game, it actually should have worked in favor of fantasy teams, not to extend their seasons, but to actually end at the same time. What's one of the biggest beef a lot of people have in fantasy is that once you start getting towards the end of the season, you got a lot of teams who are out of it, who might be tanking. You have a lot of teams who might be looking to move on from players, and so they're not playing them. There might be people that are hurt. There may be people who are resting because they've already clinched playoffs, or they're trying to maneuver their playoff spot in some type of way, whatever the situation is, those are not the optimal weeks to have fantasy playoffs going on. So in my opinion, the extra week allows us to get a fantasy playoffs out the way to have a championship before a lot of the buffoonery or the backdoorsmanship starts happening over on those teams, and now we can have really more of a true and viable championship. Also, it allows for you to have a little fun post fantasy season little tournament that you can put together if you guys are really into fantasy, like a run it back league, like a hey, here's a champion now for everybody that didn't win. Here is a second chance little 3-week tournament based off of those weeks that are left. I think it's a fun way to add some new designs to fantasy to make it better, but I do not believe you should extend your fantasy season. I do not believe you should push the playoffs back or have another week of playoffs. I think you really should leave the fantasy football design the way it is while it was still 16 games, and I think it'll work better for you in a 17-game format. Next case. This last one comes to us from John. John T says, we have a 12-team, 3-keeper league, and 2 of the members traded one of the keepers from Team A to Team B. After Team B lost a couple games, they reversed the trade with the same assets and players going back to the Team A and B. No value change, just the reversal of the trade. What would be a fair punishment / rule to create to prevent this type of foolishness in the future? Here's a real simple one. Kick them out the league. If you have a league that is competitive, if you have a league that has stakes, and this type of stuff is going on in your league, those dudes need to be out the league, or girls, or dogs, or cats, or kittens, or whoever they are. If they're doing this type of buffoonery, they need to be out the league. Now, that's easier said than done. Some of these people might be your friend, right? They might be your friend. But again, what is the purpose of this league? If it stakes, then guess what? You got to get people who do stuff like this out of the league, because it will start to deteriorate the value of the league. If people who have their hard-earned money that want to play fantasy, especially some big stakes, they're not putting that money in a league where they know that this type of stuff goes on. So you have to be very careful of allowing that to go on. Now, if I was going to make a rule up, I would say you can call it the no flipping rule, right? The no switching rule, the no swapping rule, where if you have a trade, you cannot make the exact same trade back. There has to be some added value to the trade once you make a trade one way. If you try to trade that way back, we just veto the trade. That's why you have trade vetoes. It's not so that you can arbitrarily decide what's a good trade and what's a bad trade. That's really not up to you. It should be so that when stuff like this happens, where you know it's a clear violation, you can go, nope, that's not going to happen. But for me, if something like this is going to happen in my league, those people are most likely going to have to find another league to be in. That's what I'm saying. And that's all the time we have today, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that you add your comments, you add your disputes. I want to be able to, at some point, get to the point where we bring you guys on and we want to hear your disputes live. It would be fantastic. Until next time, I am Judge Gene, and this court is adjourned.